Welcome to Win in Six, number 380. This is Jordan Tresky. Obviously, not our normal host opening the podcast, and so I'm taking the reins here. I'm going Rogue One.
Great film.
Great film. Don't have anything to do with the Star Wars universe. This is a crossover episode. I am joined here with Ty Windish of the Eurostep podcast, and it just so happens to be that we are both on the Eurostep podcast network. How are you doing, Ty?
I'm great. I like that we enjoyed our Monday pod together so much. We said, you know what, Adam and Rohan, sit this one out. We'll do the Friday pod too. Except I love host Jordan. The energy is electric. I'm ready to run through a wall. But before that, let's do a podcast. I think about 20 minutes on Rogue One, and then we can move on to talk about the Bucks ahead of their Christmas matchup against Boston.
Yes, I have not seen Rogue One, so I will not make any great opinions on that movie. And yes, it is very rare that I host. I am flexing different muscles today. You got to work your legs. You got to work your quads.
Yep.
You got to work your arm muscles, whatever they're called. The Bucks. The last time we podcasted, we talked about how great their depth is. That certainly has showed at least in one game since we last recorded. Didn't really show in the Cavs game that the Bucks lost by what, 7, 8? It turned out to be a lot, not as bad as it once looked earlier in the game.
Yeah.
But going into Christmas, big Christmas Day game over the weekend against the Celtics, the slumping Boston Celtics. This is kind of the game that everybody has been circling on their calendars for probably even before the start of the season.
Yeah.
When the schedule came out. And yes, I mean, it's the two best teams in the league. Obviously, a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinals from last year. Be a question if we see a Bucks team with Chris Middleton going into Christmas Day game against the Celtics. That might be in some doubt. We don't know. But this is the game that we have been kind of waiting for. It's the big litmus test. Can things be different against the Boston Celtics? Are the Boston Celtics different this time around based on how their recent play has been going? There's a lot of big questions on this game, and I think it's going to be talked about in a very, it's like the check mark. It's a yardstick game of okay, this is what did the Bucks learn from losing against the Celtics? Obviously, a big talking point was 3-point defense and all that stuff. Can that show against the Boston Celtics? We don't know. That'll be a big question. But what are you kind of looking for from the Christmas Day game?
I mean, I think the first thing, as it feels like the first thing with every Bucks game this season, is health. Heading into, as we record tonight's game against Brooklyn, Giannis is probable with left knee soreness. Doesn't sound too, who knows, but and Chris is doubtful still with right knee soreness. So he was also doubtful for the Cavs game. Really hope Chris can play. We all know what a difference Chris makes against the Celtics. Just hilarious that this game comes first. It's ratcheting up the drama even more because it's also the first time these teams play this season on Christmas. So yeah. I do think it was pretty saucy by the schedule makers and honestly a good idea to do it that way. But coming at a weird time for these teams, like the Bucks, hopefully will be healthy. Not really playing their best ball over the last couple of weeks. I think figuring a lot out. And we've got mailbag questions to dive into. There's just a lot happening right now with the Bucks, their rotation, their injury report. And the Celtics stink right now. They're 1-5 in their last 6 on a 4-game losing streak or a 3-game losing streak, I think, right now. They play Friday night as well before playing on Christmas, so we'll see if that carries over. But what I'm looking for on the court from the Bucks, it's a big test for their 3-point defense. Even though some Celtics shooters are slumping right now, this is still a team that we know can spread out the Bucks and really test their 3-point defense. We've seen mixed results. I thought earlier in the season the Bucks executed that defense better. There's been some moments where they waxed and waned a little bit. So this will be a good test. So I'm excited to see how Milwaukee's defense holds up against this Celtics team obviously didn't always hold up too well in the playoffs. Although, I think we all agree at this point their offense was worse overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating for the 3-point defense. Obviously, who guards who is going to be the big question that dictates everything.
Especially if our guy MarJon is still starting.
That is true. That is kind of the big question if Chris is still saddled with this knee soreness. I mean, we've seen the rotation kind of take a different shape since Joe Ingles returned. Granted, it's only 2 games, but MarJon has been starting, playing well. It's a lot to ask of a rookie to guard Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Even go on down the line. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon is not like the most, slippery guards, I guess, if you want. That's what you could call them. But I think we could see different changes if we don't see Chris. Maybe we see Javon start. They've kind of been toggling back and forth at different points of the season with him and Grayson. So yeah, I think I don't know. I'm eager because I think this is who the Bucks are going after. They're the biggest team in my mind of like nothing really matters. Like as much as I want to see them beat the Grizzlies, and that did not go well. As much as I want to see them beat the best teams in the West, it's all about the focus on the top teams in the East and who you're going to be seeing in the playoffs to get out of the East. And the Celtics represent that big boogeyman. They're going to be like that all for however long this era lasts because they too have 2 really good players under contract for some decent amount. I know Jaylen Brown's I think closer to being up than Tatum is at this point, but still, like they are like parallel direction of like team building and where they are in their whole this era of the Celtics and mirrors where the Bucks are, if not shady, a little younger. So yeah, I think the fact that, like you said, like it's the first game of the season series, a lot of expectations. Christmas Day, it's the prime Christmas Day game. Really, it's 4:00 Eastern time. No, 5:00 Eastern time, 4:00 Central time. So yeah, I'm very excited. Even if we don't see Chris, even if it means we see MarJon starting, or whatever the case may be. It's it's Bucks Celtics. It's really exciting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think. What are your thoughts on? So I guess we'll see. But so Robert Williams has returned. He missed, I think, like 20 plus games. Started the season with injury. They went really small and have been going really small. I don't know as a result or that's just the direction they wanted to go. But their starting lineup has basically been Derek White, Marcus Smart, the Jays, and Al Horford. So with Robert Williams coming off the bench here, I don't know if that's just an acclimation thing. He could start on Christmas. We'll have to monitor who starts, tonight, Friday night for the Celtics. But if Boston continues to play small, that then gives you some really interesting matchup options because I think Brook pretty much has to be on Al Horford and Giannis. I guess it depends. It depends who else starts. If it's Drew and MarJon, do you put them on the Jays and let Giannis roam a little bit off of?
Yeah,
that's it can be dangerous. Derek White did just have an 0 for 7 performance, so maybe it's not that dangerous. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And if they do start Robert Williams, then obviously, or even Grant Williams, I think then it gets a little bit easier to figure out where you put some guys. But if they keep starting super small, that's going to be fascinating. And I think we've seen the Bucks boxing out not really be great. I think if that's on point and they really put the effort in on Christmas, I would hope this is a game they get up for. I think rebounding could be a huge Milwaukee advantage here.
Yeah. It's funny to say like that's their small lineup when that is still like pretty big. But like they like the Bucks, they have found a way to play that big small. They have so many options they can go to. They could start Grant Williams or you can play more minutes. Robert Williams, obviously, as you mentioned, like returning. Derek White and even Marcus Smart, like that's a pretty big backcourt. It's not a pushovers by any means, and just a strength sense. Again, it's really fascinating. So many different directions that they can go to, and I think the Celtics, no matter what, they're gonna test the Bucks 3-point defense. They have willing shooters. They may not make them in Derek White's case in recent games, but it's all about we've seen it with the Bucks. It's about taking shots, or yeah, it's about taking shots, and it's another matter if they make them. But for the Bucks and to how they've traditionally done it under Bud, it's always about hiding guys on different players that they think are going to be threats, or you're willing to live with Derek White hitting a couple threes if it means Jason Tatum seeing a crowd every time he drives to the rim, and Jaylen Brown is scoring 15 out of 17 shots or whatever it is. It's all about like the help defense and all that stuff. We have seen from the Bucks side of things that they've kind of gone back to those habits. I mean, those habits are going to die hard, so we're going to see a lot of games where they slip into, well, that guy's not a good shooter and he gets hot. I mean, that was kind of like the Bulls game from almost a month ago, where it's like, okay, we're going to dare anybody that doesn't shoot like 2 threes a game to shoot them. And on that night, it did not work out well for them.
Yeah.
I would be eager to see them not do that, because I just think it's a recipe for disaster. You're kind of inviting, people to shoot well, and if there is no one guarding them or closing out on the 3-point line. So yeah, that's where it's going to be the whole, how many minutes is Brook going to play? He's so key to your defense at least at the rim, or specifically at the rim, that if you play him less, you're asking a lot of Bobby and Giannis to cover up the cracks, box out, which we did the playback game against Cavs, and how many times did they fight them in the ass? I don't know. They ever since Ingles it's only been 2 games, but ever since seeing Ingles start to play with them, they look a little bigger, but there's still something missing in terms of just like that second guy, someone not named Brook, to kind of just clear out.
Yeah.
Get the board, get a body on someone that isn't going to fly in and just, extend a possession and then see a guy hit a 3 or, finish at the cup or whatever it is. So I don't know. I am the Bucks defense. We know how great it is. I also just think that there are going to be times where they just slip into kind of the energy, effort, Jason Kidd-isms that, like, I don't know, that will lead to their downfall.
I think it's going to be really important for them to not overhelp against Boston. When you look at their top 3-point shooters by attempts, the top 8, right? Do you know the 3 worst by percentage?
Jaylen Brown is definitely going to be worse.
Jaylen Brown is the lowest at 33. Then Marcus Smart at 34. And then Jason Tatum at 35.8. Their role players have been the efficient 3-point shooters. Tatum's still scoring 30 and Brown's still scoring 26. It's not like, they're totally incompetent this year or something. But, helping off those guys, especially, away from the rim, to leave whoever it may be, Horford 44%, Brogdon 45%. Sam Hauser's in a vicious slump, but still at 42%. Derek White 38, Grant Williams 43. So everybody else, Robert Williams doesn't shoot. Peyton Pritchard's not that good. I don't know how much he'll play. Blake Griffin stinks. We all know this. He doesn't play when their bigs are healthy. But helping off of the Jays, or helping off of the role players to go to the Jays, could be really costly, considering pretty much everybody on their team, except for the Jays and Marcus Smart, has been a really effective 3-point shooter.
Yeah. It's it's the volume guys that you're not necessarily worried about because they're putting up 20 shots a game or whatever it is. It's the guys that the players that the Bucks have always been willing to be like, we'll let them beat us if they get hot. It's about limiting the big stars. That's where if Sam Hauser's 5 for 10 against the Bucks, it's like,
great,
game over. This could be a fun game, no matter what. Even if Chris is not playing, which again, I think there is some question about whether he'll play, but who knows? Where to next? Do we want to go in the mailbag? Do we rip the Band-Aid off and just start? Let's see what people are feeling about the Bucks.
Yeah, let's mailbag it up.
Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to take from Twitter first.
Okay. Save the Discord for last.
Yes.
We took questions in both. Be sure that you're following. What's the Win in 6 handle?
Win in six podcast. The 6 is numerical.
Adam. Oh, yeah.
As Adam.
Win
that
in
would be a
numerical.
shirt idea.
I really wonder how many people have typed in Win in NUMERIC. I'm not finding it anywhere. And get in the Discord, gspn.info. You can also find us across all platforms. This pod's on YouTube. Not all Win in 6s are, though. So find Eurostep Podcast Network feed wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you don't miss an episode. And get in the Discord.
Yes. All right. Let's go with, we're starting with Mac Wheeler at Side of Fries GK. He asks, does a trade get done, and does it make a difference in the postseason?
Ooh, I would say yes and yes.
We had some rumors. Mark Stein believes, actually, let me bring this up because it was very kind of detailed about where, more so where the Suns are sitting and their whole Jay Crowder business, I guess.
Yeah, so I can make fun of the Wizards while you're pulling it up. I know part of it was the Wizards offered Rui Hachimura as part of some sort of Jay Crowder deal. The Suns said no. The Wizards, I tweeted this. Why are the Wizards are always a 32-win team, and their great ambition is to become a 35-win team. And I just don't understand. And I get some people would probably, should the Bucks get in and get Rui? Probably not. He's not very good right now, but he might be good someday. He's an interesting player. Exactly the kind of guy the Wizards should be trying to develop. But no, let's throw him away. Contract control. Maybe he's really good next year. We need expiring Jay Crowder, who is certainly leaving unless we overpay him in the offseason. It's just so bizarre. The Wizards.
Yeah. Very mid-2000s Bucks.
Yeah.
Wizards are.
Yeah.
And
very familiar.
Bradley Beal has carved out this role as a Michael Redd.
Well, much better paid. Michael Redd's got to be sitting here. He's heavy into business.
Michael Redd
now.
got a big deal, though. He got a big deal. I mean, the equivalent of whatever year it was, 2005.
That's true. He's got to be in actual dollar amounts. He's got to be sitting here man, if I had done my thing in the 2020s,
inflation,
$60 million my last year of my contract.
All right, here's from Mark Stein. This is from Thursday. It was the whole piece was about searching for sellers as the trade deadline starts kind of, or trade season gets underway.
Yeah, the issue is teams like the Wizards don't realize that they should be sellers, so we don't have any.
Exactly. When it comes to Crowder, 3 Eastern Conference teams, Milwaukee and Miami, and the Atlanta Hawks, have been widely regarded as the veteran swingman's most ardent suitors since it was announced in September that the 32-year-old will be away from the Suns until a trade partner could be found. Goes into the Wizards deal. He explains that Phoenix is said to be holding out for a certifiable starter in a Crowder deal. Now, if you're going Bucks Suns straight up, Grayson Allen is not a starter for the Suns.
Yeah,
they have Chris Paul and Devin Booker,
and I think we've known this because it sounds like the Bucks offer has just kind of been there for a while, and the Suns said no. I think the Bucks are interested in Crowder. I think the Suns just don't care about, which makes sense as you say, right? You want to go really small to start all 3 of those guys? Probably not.
Yeah, that's where they have been linked. The Shams had the thing a couple weeks ago about the 3-team trade.
Yeah. Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon, KJ Martin going to Phoenix, which, I mean, under that scenario, is Eric Gordon a certifiable starter? Doesn't matter.
Maybe it kind of might matter to the Suns. That might be why Jay Crowder's still there.
But to me, if we're specifically talking about Jay Crowder, I know that this is not what the question is based around.
Yeah, that's just what we've heard about, though.
Yeah. The Bucks are relying on a 3-team trade because the Suns don't want what the Bucks have. At least right now. Things can always change if Jay Crowder's still on the team come whenever the trade deadline is, early February. But to me, the fact that they have to hinge on another team getting into this process and kind of drumming up interest, I think even said the Bucks would be willing for another third team to come in, seemingly because that original deal kind of died on the table. The fact that it's coming out and you see the names associated with it, probably means that it's not an active
My
deal.
my vibe was I thought it seemed like it was close. I think there was a little bit of a hang up from what we've read. KJ Martin's inclusion. I think the Rockets want more then. I think the Bucks were sending like 4 second-rounders out plus Grayson. I think Saric then goes to Houston. Eric Gordon and KJ Martin go to Phoenix, and Crowder goes to Milwaukee. I think Eric Gordon, they don't care that much. I think a couple second-round picks, the Rockets are like, yeah, why not? But KJ Martin is like a promising young player, and they're not in a position to give up on those. And it's honestly smart for the Rockets. I think sometimes teams have too many young guys, and they just kind of give one away to make things easier for them, which can be dumb if that young guy ends up being one of the better young guys on your team. The Rockets, I think, want more. It sounds like Phoenix wasn't giving up anymore. They've been tied to Kuzma, which makes sense. Like, I think what they want to do is upgrade.
So is that where the Rui thing comes from? Where it's like, okay, we'll stump for, or I guess that was more the Wizards.
Yeah, I bet they were like, hey, you guys are bad and Kuzma's expiring. Can we get Kuzma? And the Wizards are like, no. Are you kidding me?
By the way, Kyle Kuzma, congratulations for winning the award of saying you're going to decline your player option during the season. I don't think I've ever seen that. Trevor, there was someone last year that Al-Farouq Aminu was said to have so that he would pick up his
yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well that settles that. And it was February. Kyle Kuzma, I think, has taken an award from Al-Farouq Aminu.
He and Miles Turner are competing right now for the like most trying to get the hell out of here. But it's like the Wizards are just hilarious. Like, we're in 12th right now. We're only 2 spots away from the bottom play, and we're not giving up Kyle Kuzma on expiring. But I think what I can get from the Suns is like they want to upgrade Crowder. They don't want to just make a lateral move, and they have Landry Shamet. They have some picks. There's an ownership change, which complicates things. Cam Johnson is hurt now. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is gonna be a big problem. I don't see this resolving until the trade deadline because you look at recent examples. I think it was PJ, obviously with the Bucks. That was practically a week up to the deadline. Trevor Ariza, was that 2 years ago? Last year, I can't remember when that was.
Yeah,
he was like wholly out. He was on the Pistons.
When he went to the Heat, right?
Yeah, that worked out well for them.
Yeah. The one difference though is the Suns are good, and that's why I wouldn't surprise me if something got done sooner because they wanted to like figure out what their team is. It's a pretty important, especially with Cam Johnson. That's an important piece to be missing. So I think they're pretty motivated. I think they're the ones who keep leaking all this stuff to try and get something done because they got to be like, man, like we could be easily first in the West right now. Like the West is not great. I mean, there's some good teams at the top, but the Suns should be thinking they're one of them. Like I think they should be really motivated. I wonder, are they waiting to see if they can get Bojan? Everybody wants Bojan right now.
Oh,
and the Pistons keep saying they're not going to trade him. I think that is the Pistons. We're not going to trade him unless you send some real stuff.
Both teams are operating from a position of strength where Crowder is a guy that a lot of the contending teams want, but they don't have assets that the Suns necessarily want.
Yeah.
I guess you could throw the Hawks in there, even though they're not contenders. But like Bojan is playing ridiculously well. He's attached to the Lakers because who isn't attached to the Lakers? Brewers.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think that I feel like he was linked to them before, or he was linked to the Suns before he got dealt to Detroit when everything around Utah was looking like you're just stripping the whole thing down.
Is John Collins too maybe for the Suns? Both those guys are expensive, but they have Landry Shamet sitting around. They can include Cam Johnson as a sweetener.
Then you're going into Ayton, right?
No, I think they're going to keep Ayton, honestly.
That's true. Well, I guess I mean for like salary purposes.
I think Crowder, Landry Shamet makes like a lot of money, and then Cam Johnson makes like $8 million. Yeah, they have Landry Shamet. I think that's part of the salary for them, and Saric.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I think obviously a lot of the attention is going to be on Jay Crowder, and I think the Bucks are going to hold out any hope to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess other guys. I don't know if you have anyone in mind, just quickly for the Bucks, because we just talked about the Suns for 10 minutes. But the Pistons, the other Pistons guys, Alec Burks is like sort of interesting, but I think you've got to basically feel like at that point, Ingles isn't working, and we'll get to Ingles more, and Wes and George aren't necessarily working because I don't know if he's a clear upgrade. I get like Nerlens Noel, they have too. I don't care. I mean, Serge is fine for what they need of him. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think for me, the whole question for me is going to be like, okay, who is really willing to like be a trade target, or are we talking? We don't even know about like buyout guys that are going to emerge because everything is so crowded within the East and West. It's like you can only look at like the Pistons, or even, I mean, you can't even say the Magic anymore right now because they're surging. Any team that like the Bulls, if they continue kind of just floundering or just like, the path that they're on, there's not a lot of those teams that are sitting as like, oh, we have a veteran, we'll put you in a new home. Maybe that is Alec Burks for Detroit. I don't know. Like, it's not necessarily like a deep field of teams that have veterans that could help come playoff time too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a weird kind of a trade field, I guess, right now, where it's like, I guess John Horst is always going to be willing and active and stuff like that, but sometimes the teams that you expect to be sellers don't necessarily feel like they are, or doesn't materialize in the way that you imagine. That, we saw the Bucks 2019-20 season. They didn't make a trade. They got Marvin Williams off a buyout, but like that was about it. And that was not necessarily if I remember, a busy trade deadline too. It was more like the bigger stuff, but it didn't focus on like the rotation guys that the Bucks are always going to be, in business for, because they're playing for a championship.
Gary Harris, if he can stay healthy, he's averaging 10 points, shooting 43% from three, but he's only played 6 games because he can't stay healthy right now.
Yeah,
they're shopping Mo Bamba again. I feel like no one cares anymore. It was such a hot topic in the offseason.
Yeah, I think Mo Bamba is like there. John Collins is like, all right, we're gonna trade him. Let's get him out of here.
Bueller. Should the Bucks get Trae Young? No.
Apparently, no.
No, I'm not interested.
Let's keep up on this Jay Crowder bandwagon. Hunter Young at Hunter_Y13. Do you want Jay Crowder? Ty, do you want Jay Crowder?
Yeah, I want Jay Crowder. I think we've talked about a lot about Crowder over past episodes. Shooting is questionable. He still scores the ball because he just does stuff. Big, strong defender. I don't think he's a stopper. I think he's a big, strong defender. Also, he's got a little bit of that. You said ass earlier. I'm going to make it explicit pod. He's got a little bit of that, as Bill Simmons would say about Danilo Gallinari. A little bit of fuck you. And I do think the Bucks could use it. I think the Bucks are a little short on that. At some of these games, like I think they could use another guy who's just like, I'm going to go be mean a little bit to the other team. I think they kind of missed that since PJ here and there. And I wouldn't hate adding a guy who's like, Bobby can bully people, but it's like kind of here and there. And it's not defensive. I would like some more bullying on the Bucks.
You want some shithousery. Let's continue on this explicit tag.
Yeah.
To borrow from the world of football. You make a good point. That was the point that I was going to make, is like PJ, when I know he only played 3 months with the Bucks.
Yeah, it's like this central figure in Bucks lore. He was here for February to June.
Called hero, man. Hero. But he asserted that you need someone that is just going to be an irritant. Jay Crowder watching the finals was an irritant. He did things that Jay Crowder, no, you are baiting into fouls. You're, all that stuff. I think you made a good point. He's not a stopper by any means, but hey, let's kind of lessen the load for Chris on defense. Jay Crowder, we're going to put you on Jason Tatum. Yeah. Or if you're playing Philly, we're going to put you on Tobias Harris or James Harden, whatever the case may be. That is always going to be of use to the Bucks. West is he's a relief pitcher. Yeah. For the Bucks right now. Yeah. I don't necessarily trust it. I mean, Jay Crowder is a younger Wes Matthews.
Yeah. And he's going to score a little bit more. And that's the difference. PJ is a better rebounder, better defender. But Jay is like typically scores like 10 points a game ish, depending on his role, which is a lot compared to PJ, who had, I think, 5 0-point games in the finals, and Wes, who has just not sniffed double digits in a long time in a playoff run.
You kind of need, and as we have seen, you need someone that is going to take those shots. You might not make them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say Grayson Allen or Jake Crowder is a better shooter than Grayson Allen.
No,
Grayson Allen's
not.
a better shooter.
Yeah.
But who do I feel is going to be less afraid to shoot in the playoffs if, he's getting closed out on? It's going to be Jake Crowder.
The guy who goes to the finals like every other year, basically.
That's the other thing. Like, I know he's been on a lot of teams at this point.
Yeah.
But he does have some winning pedigree attached to him. I know it's not necessarily, he's not the straw stirring the drink in this case, but
he's not stopping him from going either.
No, he plays valuable roles for wherever team that he lands. I don't know. I think I definitely would like him. I think the Bucks need someone of his position. I know Joe Ingles, I probably have talked about this way too much. Joe Ingles has like given the Bucks a little bit more heft in the forward department because they're playing game like Bud would turn to a rotation of like it's Giannis they're going small with Giannis at center, but they have George Hill or Javon Carter with Pat Grayson. Like that is super small.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it against the Celtics or let's think of another big team that they could probably play. If the Heat kind of get it together based on the playoffs or Philly, like you can't, I don't think you can go by on that even for like 6-minute stretches or whatever the case may be. They just kind of need that 3-4 that like Jay Crowder kind of is. I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to be a PJ checker because everybody underrates like how strong PJ is. And there's a reason why you can put him on Kevin Durant for 48 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
In overtime too. And he's just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. So yeah, Jake Crowder he fits the archetype of what I think the Bucks need the most if you need to make a deal.
Yeah.
Am I going to move heaven and earth to get him?
No.
That's the big question. I mean, that's obviously why he's not on the Bucks right now.
Yeah. So for a frame of reference, Grayson Allen has played 435 playoff minutes in his career. How many do you think Jay Crowder has played?
Oh.
Total playoff minutes. He's
been to what? 2 finals too?
Yes.
Total playoff minutes. I'm gonna go like that's like 2,000.
3,199.
Whoa!
He has led the league in playoff games played twice, which doesn't even make sense. Yeah, I don't think he went to the final. That doesn't seem possible. I'm gonna doubt that he led the league in playoff games in a series where they lost in the ECF. But he has played in the playoffs a ton, is the point. He did lead the playoffs in threes attempted in the Miami finals run too. He shot 34% that postseason, so not great, but he shoots them. Yeah, just he's not going to be afraid of the moment. That's for sure.
No, not at all.
His tweet about Drew taking his rings was also hilarious.
That is, I forgot about that one. All right, next question from @MLFFTW21. Is it possible MarJon could be a consistent rotation guy for the playoffs this year? To go another direction in terms of in the playoff direction. No.
Oh, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible.
It obviously is dependent on if the Bucks make a move.
Yep. And if it works.
And if it works, that's a good point because, it's not necessarily about Jay Crowder. Now you're getting into Ingles territory, which they have. I would assume Bud is going to play over him if, push comes to shove.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we don't have another example of this in the Bud era. Like Dante got hurt. They haven't made another first round pick until MarJon.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going into we didn't see Jordan Wara in the title run all that much.
No,
outside of garbage time.
The issue of him not being good was there too, though.
That is true. Yeah, that is a. I should have made that example or comparison when MarJon is doing a lot better than Jordan Ward did. Well, Jordan, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
MarJon, I would like to see. Obviously, we all want to see more consistency. We want to see this over a large stretch, maybe the entire season. That would be very good.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're going to earn Bud's trust, it has to be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go through rookie ups and downs and slumps like that, unless MarJon turns out to be an all-star.
That would be nice.
Dynamo under our eyes. I just think that it's going to be too much too soon.
It probably will be. For me, the reason I think it's possible is the fit is just really there. Like every time he's on the floor, it just looks like he's doing good stuff. It looks like he's been a Buck for a while. The way he just kind of fits in most of the time. He's got to cut the turnovers. I think that's the most important thing for him. Probably the fouls a little bit as well. But we know the effort is going to be there defensively. The shooting is a big deal, although I honestly don't think that's going to be what swings it for him. Like I think if he's not shooting the greatest, the Bucks are kind of used to that, and I think that might not doom him. But I think it's going to be the turnovers, the travels mostly. And like, what kind of an outsized impact can you make defense and rebounding? Because he is a good rebounder as well. So, again, I think it's certainly uphill sledding. I think there's vets ahead of him. They might acquire more vets to be ahead of him. That's the purpose of team building, is to have options and, make guys earn their minutes. I think right now we can talk about some of the other guys he's, I guess, competing with. I think he's holding up pretty well compared to some of these other defensive wing players on the Bucks or that size wing players on the Bucks. So again, it's uphill, but right now he has minutes because of Chris's injury. Let's see. I mean, I think he's got a chance. I think it's possible. Yeah. I would not bet on it. And again, we said this all along, Rohan and I, like if he's playing in the playoffs, either something horrible happened, a couple of somethings, or something really good happened. Like it's one or the other. Hopefully it would be for the really good reason. Yeah.
Even Pat, too. I think they have been slow to really unleash Pat consistently.
I think Pat's Pat's out. Pat's locked in. Like,
for sure. I do think that explains why we're seeing MarJon a lot right now. And we would have seen him if he hadn't gotten sick and been missing all those games, too. It wasn't, I think there was some question of Bud not playing because of that. Because MarJon was sick.
I mean, I think he didn't play him a couple games before that came out.
Yeah.
Also, MarJon had like 16 turnovers to 6 assists in the month of November. Like he's still a rookie. Like he's still working through some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got an even assist turnover ratio in December, shooting 46% from 3, I think. So let's see.
There we go. Back to Hunter Young at Hunter_Y13. Do you have health concerns for this team long term, including the postseason?
I think you have to have some.
Yes.
I'm not giving up on anything. There's some doom and gloom folks out there, which I kind of do understand, honestly. I mean, Chris, can we get 10 games from Chris in a row? It'd be nice.
It would be nice. Chris is obviously the big name.
I'm not that worried about anyone else, I don't think.
No. This comes with an older team, you know, right? It's like Chris is, I think, 31, 32. Joe Ingles coming back from an ACL tear. He's, at least looked, well, I would say physically fine. I know he's got to get up to speed in terms of just, his overall play.
Yeah.
But then it's, Brooke is on, 35. Drew is on the older side, turned, north of 30 at this point. It's an older team, so you're going to, if you're going to be kind of worried about durability, and they have a couple guys coming off of significant injuries.
Yeah.
That's always going to exist. It's part of why the Bucks, you capitalize on other teams suffering through injuries. It's part of basketball. It's part of
all sports.
All sports, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are sometimes where you capitalize on it, and sometimes those opportunities hit you at the worst time possible.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of just stand, even if it's not necessarily like I'm looking at Chris or Joe currently. We could be talking about them, knock on wood, being without, Drew or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that's just kind of where I stand on it, at least.
Yeah, man, if you look around the league, it's not even just the old teams. Like the Sixers were without Harden and Maxey for a long time, and they're still without Maxey, who's not old. Like it's just
Yeah,
part of the league.
there's kind of a weird thing going on with that.
There's a lot.
Like.
Yeah, he's been quite a while now. But
Yeah.
the Celtics have been pretty healthy, but obviously without Robert Williams. Like if you name a team, there's probably Steph just got hurt again. Like there's only so much you can do. It doesn't help too. I think it feels worse. Bucks keep getting sick. Like the illnesses going around the league and I think everywhere. I think everyone knows a lot of people who have been sick the last month or two. Like that has made it look even worse, I think, than it actually is. So but yeah, it's always going to be there to some extent. I'm not going to let it ruin my day or ruin my year of Bucks fandom.
Yeah, for sure. At Cowboy of Space, does it seem like a lot of our losses this regular season could be chalked up to our old friend, Jason Kidd's favorite phrase, energy and effort?
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten straight out played too often, I don't think. A couple times.
Memphis game for sure. That's obviously, that felt like 5 games, but it was 1. But it was just like, it was not there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Could have easily said the same about the Cavs game.
The first half of the Cavs game, for sure.
The first half. But they showed a resiliency in coming back, and it was a matter of just hitting shots or not turning over the ball. How many times they did that game?
The Bulls game, I would say.
Yes, the Bulls game was like my first I haven't felt this feeling in a while. And it was like, you guys just punted on this game.
Yeah.
Probably I didn't feel that since game 2 against the Bulls last spring.
Yeah.
There has to be another
I would say the Lakers and Sixers games. I don't think it was that. I just thought they played dumb in those games, which is another classic. Like Drew and Giannis just stopped passing entirely in the Sixers game and brick a bunch of shots. And that was the game where they lost Maxey in that game. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, all we have to do is, let Brook do his thing on Embiid, and they start doubling, and Embiid is just like making easy passes. Like I think they've over-adjusted in some games, but I wouldn't call that. That's a different issue, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are probably the biggest games that I could think of, where it just felt like they are not turning it on.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Rockets game. Rockets lost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was another, Giannis goes off to this hot start. It just disappears. And then you're just kind of it was a lot of the swing the ball around the perimeter, shoot threes. You're not really attacking. Your offense dries up. The Rockets are just playing more motivated and hungrier than you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And I feel like that game and kind of the Cavs game too, they're both games where they really missed healthy Chris.
Yeah.
Because some of these games, I think it doesn't start that way always, or for the Cavs game it did. But the thing about Chris and his importance is teams can barrier off the rim and make it really hard for Giannis. Almost any team can. You need the perimeter shot making. So if Drew is not playing or if Drew has an off night, then it really comes down to role players without Chris out there. And that's why Chris could break open defensive shells for Giannis. And when he's not there to do that, it just gets harder. So, I think certainly that they didn't try hard enough in a lot of these games we've said, which it's an 82-game season. They're still first place in the NBA. So clearly not that big of an issue, I think. But I also think you really feel what they're losing when they don't have Chris out there in some of those games too. It just makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Another from at Cowboy Space. What's on your Milwaukee Bucks Christmas list?
Ooh.
I don't know what I would say.
What would give the Bucks?
That's how I'm interpreting the question. I don't know what I would necessarily. I mean, obviously, I would like to see a healthy Chris play consistent games.
That's probably the first one.
Yeah,
healthy Chris on Christmas, starting from then on.
Joe Ingles, getting up to speed.
Yeah,
and it's more about what they have. I want to see what this team is because they made the move to get Ingles. They made this deliberate process of bringing Chris in the way that they did. Obviously got sidetracked with the death of his father and all that stuff, but they had a whole process of going through, this is when we're going to bring him back and we're going to bring him slowly. I don't necessarily think that, we'll see. I think we're always going to be worried about any anytime he pops up on the injury report, we're going to be worried about what does this mean? Is it them kind of gaming the injury report and just putting a thing on him, or is it actual he's feeling right knee soreness or whatever the case may be? So yeah, I think top of the list is healthy Chris because he is so instrumental to this team that you want to see him play as well as he can.
I agree. I'll do a fun one. That's fun, but I'll do a spicy one too. I would like to gift the Bucks one Emmanuel quickly. Oh, the reports keep coming out that the Knicks are. Yeah, we'll trade Emmanuel quickly for some reason. They won a lot of games now. He scored 20 and hit a bunch of threes in their last 2 games, both of them. So don't know if they're still interested in that or not. And I know people say, oh, the Bucks have Javon. Yeah, I love Javon. Would really like a young scoring threat guard off the bench. He's already proven he could do that at an NBA level. Like, I'm interested. I would take the flyer. If again, would I move heaven and earth? No. But if the Knicks are like, yeah, Jordan Ware in 3 seconds, and you can have Emmanuel Quickly. Yeah, I would like to see what Emmanuel Quickly looks like on the Bucks for sure.
If the Knicks are willing to just be like, yeah, we're gonna trade one of our better players for no explainable reason, let's do it.
This is Tibbs. Well, Deuce Ice is better. We're gonna go with Deuce.
Eric, get back up here.
They move him too, but I'm good on that.
Yeah, I think we're all good on that one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to Discord. Join the Discord. We call mailbag questions out there. It's fun. We talk about Bucks, not just Bucks. We talk about Packers, Brewers. Yeah. Just our little plug for the Discord. We got multiple questions from the same people. At Tommy E. Beat, I think it's Tommy Evans Barton, who filled in for on Talk of the Tundra recently. He did very good. He asks his first question. Let's go. What do you see Joe Ingles' role on the team being? Seems like they're currently having him camp in the corner way too much, but he's only like 25 NBA minutes back from being 10 months off.
I mean, they're having him handle the ball sometimes. I think they're going to ease him into doing that more. And I think it's instructive that George Hill is the one sitting out when he plays. Like I think he's a backup ball handler, which is probably not good for Javon's opportunities of doing that. But Javon has also been a little inconsistent, hesitated a little bit too much, and I think could probably use another ball handler on the team anyway. So I don't think it's a bad thing, as long as Ingles can play well, which so far not the case. But as Tommy said, 25 minutes.
25 minutes. He has not played well. I think he had 3 turnovers in the Cavs game. A lot of that, like, as much as we're going to look at him as, this dead-eye shooter, for me, a lot of the turnovers could just be attributed to, I haven't played with Giannis before. I don't know. It's all timing stuff, it feels like, that has been kind of, weighing his play down, I guess, to this point. And as you mentioned, like, he has been handling the ball. It's not necessarily like you're staying in the corner. We're not going to have you, drive action. I think it's more, he's not like, there's not a de facto point guard. George Hill, even though he's playing as, the one, it's not like he's leading the offense time in, time out. Necessarily that could be the case with like bench lineups, but even so, like, the Bucks offense is designed for everybody to touch the ball if it runs the way that they design it to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Ingles is kind of, they're going to work his way into kind of being the multi-purpose, I'm trying to think of an analog to not being like a point guard, but like, you're going to touch the ball. You're going to make quick decisions with the ball if it swings your way. It's not necessarily about you leading the offense. It's like, can you keep
He's like a secondary creator.
Yeah, secondary creator. Yeah. Second or strong, whatever obscure NBA term that keeps getting floated out with like Joe Ingles. But yeah, he's like a secondary creator kind of guy that they want him on the floor rather than being like you're the point guard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they let him defend Donovan Mitchell in the Cavs game. I think he should be defending like non-star players in general and really like more 3s, 3.5s, 4s than anything, because the strength is there. He's a smart player. The quickness is really not there. And I mean, it's not like he was super fast. He's called himself slow for like 10 years. But I just think, especially where he's at right now physically, like he looks good. He doesn't look fast. So I think they might have to revamp their expectations for what he can do defensively. But yeah, I think that's what it'll be too.
Yeah, that's part of the feeling out process that I think that they'll have with him, and just seeing, what can he do, what is he strong at, and what he has to work on and stuff like that. Second question from Tommy: how much does MarJon have to do to get playoff rotation minutes, or is that just not possible? Sans injury, knock on wood, with the current depth.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it, but I feel like 10 points per game, efficient shooting, cut the turnovers, be a good defender. Cut the
turnovers. Yeah, he already plays within his role. You mentioned that too. Already plays within his role. He's making progress on his shot faster than I think a lot of people expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just play within your role and not kind of, is he ready to make plays on the ball like he is? No.
Yeah.
But that'll come in time if he just, kind of works his way through that and they develop in a way that he can just be more than a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned it's possible he's playing more than Wesley Matthews has recently.
Yeah, I think part of the calculus is honestly Wes and Hill and Ingles continuing to look old.
Yes. Yeah, it's all about can MarJon from the minute that they draft him, he's the injection of youth.
Yeah.
Can they, capitalize on that and kind of live with the mistakes that happen with that? I think that's always the age old Bud question, because we had Dante as an example, but injury got in the way of like really seeing that in full force. Luckily, knock on wood, MarJon stays healthy and all that stuff, and we can kind of see if he has Bud's full trust when it matters most.
Yeah, I'll be really interested, actually. We didn't talk about this, but to watch him specifically against Boston. And, is he able to make a plus impact when they get him out there? And, if he's not clamping, but is he, bothering Tatum and Brown more than, the Ingles and the Wes Matthews of the world? I think that could be really useful just tape to see before a potential playoff series, because I do think the Bucks looked pretty old and slow for a lot of that Celtics series. And MarJon is obviously the antithesis of old and slow.
Absolutely. Last question from Tommy. Are Wes and George's moral support now? / how much would Javon have to continue to struggle on offense for Bud to go back to Hill? Fingers crossed he won't.
I'm not going to try and predict what Bud will or won't do. Fool's errand. No idea. No idea.
They are definitely moral support guys. I would say more so Wes, because the Bucks just have more options there.
Yeah.
We only saw. I mean, as he played well enough, I would say in the playoffs last year. But Wes only had an enlarged role because Chris was hurt.
Yeah.
They needed someone to mop up duty and be like, okay, I'm going to be seeing Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown for any second that I'm on the floor. And maybe Bud goes back to that. Well, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I think that's how he kind of views it, just to lighten the load for everybody else. But
yeah,
with George, I don't know. I do think he is kind of, George, to me, he can be manly because it's like, we know how he can be when he's aggressive and is looking for a shot and not necessarily just like you're out there just to, keep things moving and not necessarily benefiting from your own shot creation and stuff like that. I do think George will have a role, even if it comes at Javon's expense. Javon is kind of like, we kind of see with him too, like he can kind of be in his head about being aggressive. Is he going to shoot tonight? Is he, is the offense running smoothly if he's running all bench lineups and stuff like that? Like, I don't necessarily think it's an easy role to have, whether it's him or George, because like how the Bucks offense is when it's not with Giannis or Giroux, like their best players that are tasked with the ball all the time.
Which it's probably a lot of the reason that Ingles was the target.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
let him do that instead.
But I don't know. I think the jury is still out about George because I don't necessarily think he's good vibes George guy. I do think that Bud wants. I think Bud thinks that George can service a role on this team. It's just a matter of the timing working out in their favor.
I wonder if it'll depend on how Ingles or any other acquisition does, because I do think I'd say even outside of his shot process, Javon's biggest struggle over the last couple of weeks, like the passing has not been good. He's spraying passes out of bounds. I think the benefit of George, I think one is size. I think they see him more against bigger teams. He's just bigger than Javon is. Even I don't necessarily think he's actually a better defender, even against bigger players, but the Bucks seem to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I mean, George is just very steady. He's always been, right? Like he'll dribble around, he'll go make the entry pass, he'll go sit in the corner. But I think, if Ingles comes in and, he can be that bench ball handler or whatever, take some of that off Javon's plate, I think Javon might actually then be in line to play more over George because he's, probably a better shooter at this point, and he's a better defender, especially on smaller players. And he doesn't have to worry about the other stuff. But I think George is, if Javon's having some turnovers, Ingles isn't working out, then I think we might see George. I think, if George and Wes are like the 11th and 12th guys, like the in case of injury guys, it's a pretty deep team.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
I'm not complaining about that. I think that is ideally that was what we all expected.
It's better than Teague and Elijah Bryant, which was the championship version of those guys. So
that is true. I'm not. If that is where the Bucks rotation lies, and again, health, poor meaning as I knock on oak, balsa. If that is where the Bucks rotation is, like that, we're fine.
It's a good thing.
We're gonna be. Yeah, it's a good thing. Let the chips fall where they may.
And I just want to say this.
Yes.
I know we're running long. Not really. Nobody wants to trust Bud. I trust Bud implicitly now. I disagree with him. Half the time, probably more than half the time this season, the things that I thought were dumb worked out for the Bucks. I was crying bloody murder about George playing a bunch in a game. He hit a couple threes and played really good in that game. Like, I'm ready to ride with Bud. I like Javon Carter. I think Javon is better than George Hill at this point. If there's games where George Hill plays, I'm going to say, you know what? I'll trust the call. Like, I don't think there's been anything egregiously bad. I disagree with things. I also think, and this was, our pod with Brad Fisher of the UW Oshkosh women's basketball team helped to contextualize, like, some of this is based on trust and not just Bud, but also how the team feels. Some of this is based on, it's not about winning game 16. It's about being ready for the 16-game season. So I'm on board. I'm going to trust. I'm not going to say having a bunch of good players is a bad thing because I don't trust Bud. I've moved past it. I'll live and die with Bud. I'm there.
Yep. I think that is wise words. I wish that was our last question because that would be wise words to last on. But I do. That is not to keep this going longer, but the whole point of we're talking about. Oh, I used to play Javon Carter more and stuff like. Things can be hard to who has it. It's a guessing game of okay, we trust. Bud has implicit trust in all of his players. When it matters most, is he going to waver on some of those guys? Yes, but it's a matter of where does he fit in this current form? How is he playing? Can he do what? It's not Bud is the figurehead, but he's also talking about this with his coaches.
Yeah,
he is ultimately making the decision or responsible for those decisions, but he's talking about this constantly with his coaches and stuff it's very sensitive stuff to be all right, we're gonna go George over Javon or X over Y and be okay, we're gonna live with this, and if it doesn't work out, we have to just own up to it. You know what I mean? It's part of the game, and it's that stuff is hard. We're not it's not talking about okay, I wish they should play Javon over Giannis.
Yeah.
They're not making these radical decisions. They're just it's role players that can you get hot at the right time. The whole reason why the Bucks playoff run and title run was amazing is the fact that they had so little players playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't go that deep. maybe that was part of the success or whatever the case may be. And I know Bud just gets a bad rap when they have a deep team, but like that is ultimately what you want.
Yeah.
You want to have players that you can turn to all the time rather than be like, for the love of God, just don't let this house of cards just fall under itself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And it's not saying we agree with everything. Like I think Javon should have played over George last playoffs, but I also get it. Like and I think you look at every fan base has similar complaints about every coach, if not worse. And it's like, nobody gets all the calls right. Nobody does. And it's just like, there's a difference between saying, and there's, people, oh, Bud's never made a mistake. Of course he has. But, he's made enough good choices to host some hardware and coach of the year and one of the longest playoff streaks in the league, one of the best records in the league in his tenure. Like, I'm willing to live with the mistakes. Like, I don't think you're going to find anyone better. He's won me over.
Absolutely. Last questions from Gotta Chris Revenge Tour Stan. He asked, what will it take for Bud to start Javon over Grayson as the fifth starter once Chris is back for good? Or is MarJon the real answer for the fifth starter?
I don't know. Starter Javon, what would it take? Probably Grayson the same thing. What'd you say?
Grayson be hurt?
No, I think the same thing it took last time for this decision to be made with a different player. I think it would take a Grayson slump, a prolonged Grayson slump. I mean, that's more or less how we ended up with Wes, right? I mean, I think there was an injury too, but he also just wasn't playing well, and Wes would fill in and played much better, and then eventually it just became such. So maybe it would take an injury or just like a prolonged, 10 games of bad Grayson, which I hope we wouldn't see. I mean, you certainly would hope he's able to be more consistent, but I do think it would probably take that. Like, I don't know if Javon could win it back, especially because it seems like this role he's currently in is not ideal for him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's Grayson. I mean, again, the fifth starter for the Bucks is always going to be like, it's going to be interchangeable in terms of like fans' minds because it's like, oh, let's go with the better guy. Let's go with the better guy. Grayson Allen, as much as like he does frustrate me, you want to see him play the best that he can play every game. He's having a pretty good season.
Yeah,
he's shooting the ball well. He's playing decent defensively. He's not the strongest defender at 6'4" or whatever it is. He's going to be looked at as the mismatched target for every opposing defense or opposing team. He still has value to this team. We talked about like with Adam a couple weeks ago where it's like Chris is coming back. Who is that fifth starter? They went with Grayson because at least I made the argument that like the Bucks ceiling, at least offensively, is made higher if Grayson is playing as well as he is. It's just a matter of coexisting with all the top players. Javon, he can do that certainly defensively. He's a bulldog by his own admission, and having that's going to be of use to them. But it's can he play right? Can he kind of get through? He's had his own ups and downs this year. Grayson has too, but Grayson's kind of been winning out that, I guess, head-to-head battle.
Yeah. I'll say the one other circumstance is if defensively they really started to struggle with guarding a second guard, which I think clearly, like, we've talked about the overlap with Chris and Grayson offensively. Defensively, you'd probably want them to both guard wings more. I guess Grayson, you don't mind guarding guards because he kind of gets overpowered by wings too. But like if you're playing again, they're just not healthy, so we just don't know. But like you're playing the Cavs with that Chris Grayson starting lineup, and Drew is on Mitchell, let's say, and Garland's just killing you because you have to put Grayson on him, and then the next night you're playing whoever else, the Kings, and Kevin Huerter's killing you, and you have good defense on Fox. Like if that continued happening, then maybe you say, you know what, we do need the defense. Chris is playing well offensively now. He's still playing good defensively. We also don't want to put Chris on Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. Like that is the one thing. And I still think, a matchup based starting five is not very Bucks. I don't think it would be an awful move, but it just doesn't seem like something they want to do.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like I also too like it's not this. I know there's always going to be about the fifth starter who you're putting in the starting lineup. It's also going to be based on. I think the bigger question is closing because they have
And
so many options. We're not even talking about
yeah,
Pat here, but we kind of just his role is so built in that like yeah he may not be starting, but he might be out there when it matters most.
especially the way he's been playing lately. There's shots falling again.
Shots falling. He's getting aggressive to the rim.
Yeah,
Playing. I mean, he does as well as he can defensively. It's just a matter of holding up against the bigger names.
how good would Pat have to play to start starting? Or we just have to keep like the level of the last like let's say 2-3 games. Like if he just keeps that up for a month,
I don't know.
It's interesting.
I mean, it would be interesting. I wouldn't have to necessarily worry about him coexisting with the starters like I do with like Grayson or
no, because you like you say he's been a closer now for a while, or at least a semi-closer. Like he's a fourth quarter minutes guy. Like it's not like he's not used to playing with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and to the second part of that question, I don't think long term MarJon is, or well, at least for this season.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I was like, oh, I hope he did.
I don't think MarJon is that answer.
No, not this year.
I would love to be proven wrong if he's again just this underrated uncut gem.
Yeah, MarJon's averaging 20 and 5 in January. Wait, what's going on?
He's not starting. What is okay? But we're starting.
Yeah. Let's have a combo here.
But yeah, it's hard. They have a lot of good players. That's part of where we're at. It's like, okay, we're talking about Grace and Javon. I brought up Pat because we didn't talk about Pat. Wes, we don't really want to see that anymore.
Yeah,
but like,
no.
I wouldn't mind if Wes is playing, and if he's playing well, we're gonna celebrate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the luxury of having a deep team. You want to have options, and if they're all healthy, it doesn't make it any easier when your season's on the line. You're playing against the Celtics or going through your playoff run, but they have players, and the fact that we're talking about MarJon in this scenario is kind of interesting.
Credit to him.
Very credit to him. I mean, he's been really good since coming back. So I don't know. All right, those are the questions, but we have one more segment.
Oh yeah, I have a question for you actually. So we've been talking about this depth. So would you prefer? And I know we just talked about how the depth is a good thing and everything else, but are they like let's say 12-ish right now, right? 13-ish, I guess 14 if you think Serge is playable. AKA everyone but Wara. Sorry, Jordan. Trade Jordan somewhere. Let Jordan play. But would you prefer the Bucks to keep this depth or to consolidate a few players / contracts to get one more player you trust more, a la Crowder? So instead of, and don't say him in particular, but instead of the idea of like we swap out Grayson for Crowder, it's we swap out, Wara, Hill, West, or whatever the salaries are for someone like that.
I wouldn't mind it.
Just to simplify, even though we just said we trust Bud and everything, just to simplify things a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it because ultimately you're banking that on a more talented player or someone who can fill a role.
Yeah.
I think Adam and I talked about it, though, like the thing that the Bucks had to weigh this year, I think more so than any other year or under the Bud era, is like they made this concerted effort to bring everybody back. It's about continuity and it's so anti what the NBA is all about, presumably. I do think if you take a piece away or pieces away and consolidate, what are you losing? You may not be losing like, rotation players or players that you would have played a lot in playoff time if your team is fully healthy.
Yeah.
But I do think there is something to be said about like just keeping the good vibes and stuff like that. Like everything is it's such a long season. And like when it comes playoff times, like how many times have we seen like throughout NBA history, a team struggling or, getting bounced out of the playoffs or like something truly like apocalyptic happening. and it changes the course of like their whole run.
Yeah.
Like, we see the Jazz were kind of, I mean, it had been simmering for a long time, but like the fact that they were unable to go deeper than the second round of playoffs, like played into the factor of like, we're going to blow it up with Donovan and Rudy on top of them just like kind of hate each other.
Yeah, that too.
But like, I think it's like a matter of like keeping the peace and keeping things even keel. And like, there's so, as much as like, we talk about Giannis being such a team first guy, and that is, I'm not saying he is not.
Yeah.
But he is also a strong presence in the whole grand scheme of things that like he expects so much of himself and expects others to kind of, he's leading by example, that if you don't have the guy that like something to counterbalance that or kind of add to that, it can kind of make things a lot more gravely serious.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it. It's a multi-pronged kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. You certainly don't want to jeopardize culture. I mean, I think they could probably move past it, but it does go against the continuity they've preached.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Are you ready?
Oh, I as ready as I can be, Jordan.
Yeah, so this is the Mike Dunlap tweet of the week. We had some good contenders. This is our, I think, fourth. It doesn't matter. Fourth straight week of doing this. And Mike Dunlap is reflecting on the current mood. We're a couple days away from Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Let's hear from the words of Mike Dunlap. Reflection, impact, service. Holiday is a good time for coaching staff and team to sit in a semicircle and articulate what they are grateful for from last several months or year. Taking time to express gratitude creates a mindset, jettisoning most from personal struggles and setbacks. Very inspirational. Very inspirational stuff from Mike.
That is. Sorry, I got distracted. Can you put on your Talk of the Tundra hat for a second, Jordan? We have news. Big news, actually.
Wait, what?
The Packers and star offensive lineman Elgton Jenkins have agreed to terms on a massive 4-year extension worth $68 million base value with a max value of $74 million.
Whoa!
Second highest paid guard in the NFL, if you consider him a guard, which apparently the Packers do now.
Interesting. Huh. That is kind of surprising timing, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's not like the same extension deadlines, I think, that are in the NBA, but it just felt like there was all these murmur, they might have to let him go and everything else. And the Packers are like, no, we're not going to do that. I don't know where this money is coming from because I feel like their cap situation has been fraught.
Good question. Very good question.
But you need more guys who can play guard for sure. So you don't hate keeping a good offensive lineman.
Yeah, don't hate it, especially with David Bakhtiari. Maybe they move this kind of gels, push them to move on from him.
Yeah.
As much as that's going to be cap hell too.
Yeah.
Interesting timing, to say the least. Week 16 before the Dolphins game.
They needed that extra surge of momentum for the Miami game.
I don't blame them because they might get massacred. But yeah, that is interesting timing. Talk about a team that disappointed everybody, the Packers, and let's go back to a team that gives me good vibes, good feelings.
The Bucks.
But yeah, I think that's about covers it. This is when Adam usually plugs everything, and now I'm forgetting how he plugs all this stuff. You can find us on Twitter at Win6 numerical value podcast. The Eurostep Podcast Network. You can find all of our podcasts at Talk of the Tundra. Breaking news. Cruising for a Bruising. They're going strong in the off season as the Brewers are kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're patiently waiting.
Some good moves.
They make some moves, very big moves, but Matt Arnold's a man of just like, he's like a cobra. You don't know when he's going to strike.
Yeah.
You got to he's doing his little cobra dance, I guess. I'm Eurostep, obviously. Make time for this. I think that's all of our podcasts. I always forget how many podcasts we have. You can find them on social media. join the GSPN Discord. We're running a survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
On just everything GSPN related. Yeah, this is me trying to close a podcast I don't normally do, and I'm doing
it's doing great.
Doing pretty good. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, that is it for Win 6, and we'll find. I think the timing will be better for Adam and I will connect next week. But yeah, thank you for filling in, Ty.
Of course. Thank you, Jordan.
There we go. Thank you. How can I say thank you to myself? I don't know.
We're thankful. Happy holidays, everyone, as well.
Happy holidays. Yep, that's it.